In a small village on the edge of a dense forest lived a brother and sister, Andrew and Lisa. Since childhood, they had heard frightening stories about spirits in the forest that kidnapped people. None of the villagers dared to venture deep into the woods after dark. One evening, Andrew and Lisa decided to find out if these stories were true. They took lanterns and set off into the forest, despite their parents' warnings. The forest was thick and eerie, with trees that seemed to whisper to them. Soon they began to notice strange shadows flitting between the trees, shadows that moved too quickly and had peculiar shapes. "Maybe it's just our imagination," Andrew said, trying to reassure his sister and himself. But it quickly became clear that it wasn't their imagination. The shadows grew closer, and soon they heard strange rustling and soft whispers. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "We need to go back, Andrew," she said, her voice trembling. They hurried back, but the forest seemed to come alive around them. The shadows grew denser and started to surround them. One of the lanterns suddenly went out, and Andrew felt cold hands grab his shoulder. He screamed, and Lisa turned to see a dark figure dragging him into the depths of the forest. Lisa was left alone, her heart pounding. She began to run, not looking back, tears streaming down her cheeks. She managed to escape the forest and return to the village. The entire village rose to search for Andrew, but he was never found. Since then, every night, Lisa heard his voice calling to her from the forest. She knew Andrew would never return, and that the forest had taken him forever. The villagers grew even more fearful of the forest, and no one dared enter it after dark. Years passed. Lisa grew up, but the memory of that dreadful night never left her. She avoided the forest and tried not to think about what had happened, but the nightmares still haunted her. Sometimes she thought she heard Andrew's voice calling to her from the edge of the forest, but she knew it was just her imagination. One day, a wandering researcher named Victor arrived in the village. He was interested in local legends and mystical phenomena. Hearing the story of Andrew's disappearance and the strange shadows in the forest, he decided to investigate. Victor approached Lisa and offered to help her find answers. At first, Lisa refused, but then agreed, hoping it would bring her peace. Victor and Lisa set off into the forest at the first light of dawn. Victor carefully studied every trace, every strange mark on the trees. The further they went, the more Lisa felt a strange tension. Her heart pounded, but she kept going. At the edge of a forest glade, they stumbled upon an old, abandoned shrine that no one in the village knew about. The shrine was covered in ancient runes and symbols that Victor couldn't immediately decipher. He sensed that this place was important. "These symbols might be related to an ancient ritual," Victor said, examining the runes. "This place might have some significance for the forest spirits." Lisa stepped closer to the shrine and felt a strange sensation, as if invisible hands were pulling her inside. Suddenly, her vision blurred, and she saw Andrew surrounded by shadows, his face pale and sorrowful. "Lisa, help me," he whispered, and his voice echoed through the shrine. Lisa felt tears welling up. She turned to Victor and told him about the vision. "We need to perform a purification ritual to free his spirit," Victor said. "It could be dangerous, but it's our only chance." They began preparing for the ritual, following ancient texts and clues Victor had found. They lit candles, placed amulets, and began reciting incantations in an ancient language. The forest around them grew silent, as if watching. Suddenly, the shadows started to thicken around the shrine. Lisa felt a cold wind and whispers from all directions. Victor continued reading the incantations, ignoring the chaos around them. Unexpectedly, Andrew's figure appeared before them, his eyes filled with pain and fear. "Lisa, help me," he whispered again. Gathering all her courage, Lisa took Andrew's hand and began repeating Victor's words. The shadows around them started to fade, as if dissolving into the air. Gradually, Andrew's figure became more transparent. "I love you, Lisa," Andrew said, his voice full of gratitude. And at that moment, when the final words of the ritual were spoken, Andrew's figure vanished, and the forest returned to silence. Lisa felt an incredible relief. as if a heavy burden had lifted from her shoulders. From that day on, Lisa no longer heard voices from the forest. Victor left, giving her several protective amulets. The villagers learned of her bravery and respected and feared the forest even more. Lisa found peace, knowing her brother had finally found rest,